Hey, Andrew here from the Investor's Way, and welcome to Woody's Weekly Wisdom, episode number 20. And again, sorry, but we are talking about inflation and interest rates because, well, there's finally some more significant good news coming out of Australia, and we're finally catching up to what's been happening in the US and other parts of the world. So the headline, inflation falls sharply on tumbling fuel costs and may allow the RBA to hold off on an interest rate rise. So there's a little bit to unpack in this one. So let's dive in and see what we can come up with. And we'll just concentrate initially on these key points. So in Australia, the annual rate of inflation slumped from 6.8% in April to 5.6% in May. So still above the Reserve Bank's 2 to 3% target range, but a fall of a massive 1.2%. That's huge in the scheme of inflation, and something that we've seen happen in the US in recent months as well. So, as I said, we're finally catching up, and this has led to people talking about, well, maybe the RBA can pause interest rate rises for now until we see what's happening. But the unfortunate part about this article is that it starts to try and unpack the decrease and not necessarily blame it, but attribute the decline to certain aspects of the economy, and then put a spin on it to say, well, hang on a minute, well, maybe because it's mostly related to fuel prices and some other things, that the signs are not as positive as they could be, and therefore the RBA might still look to increase rates one more time. Well, let's face it, that is just utter garbage. They don't do that when the inflation rate's in the target range. Why are they doing it now? And the simple fact is that inflation has decreased. Simple as that. And inflation, and it's a lot of that decrease is coming from things like fuel prices and airfares, things that went up because of aspects beyond our personal control. Now, what some of this article is saying a bit further down is that we're still spending, we're still going out to restaurants and all that type of stuff. So maybe we need another rate rise slap over the face to slow us down from spending to get the last little bit of that decrease. Well, we weren't the ones that went to war in the Ukraine. We weren't the ones that slowed the transportation of oil around the world to cause fuel prices to go through the roof and all these other things that were beyond our control. So why is it that we're the ones that has to cut back our spending right now when we're finally seeing some good news related to some of these things that were beyond our control and now starting to come back to normality? And they're hiding behind the fact as well that there's still 2 interest rate rises that haven't hit people's back pockets. So all this talk about, everyone's under pressure and, budgets are under pressure, household budgets are under pressure, and, but we're still spending. Well, hang on a minute. There's still 2 more interest rate rises that have got to come through that are going to really hurt. And rents are up 6.3%, housing up 8.4%. Over the year, that is, not necessarily the month, but even so, these are things that are a result of the interest rate rises going up. So to then say, well, we can't keep interest rates on hold because households are still spending money is just utter garbage. So as much as this article, let's go back to the headline. Inflation falls sharply on tumbling fuel costs and may allow the RBA to hold off on an interest rate rise. It shouldn't say may allow, it should demand that they at least pause so that we can see what these final 2 interest rate rises that are still to hit the market, what impact they have on inflation. Because we all know history suggests that the Reserve Bank, whether it's in Australia or overseas, they overshoot the runway and then they have to unravel the work to get us back to a position of normality. So how about you just have a pause for a month again, 1 more month, and let's just see what impact the next interest rate rise has on people's spending and on the general inflation number, because we are on a precipice of a recession based on the delicate position of so many borrowers. And let's face it, the data out there is also telling us that a large number of people are coming off historically low fixed interest rates in the September quarter, or even in the month of September, but the September quarter predominantly. So they're all going to come off. So they currently haven't probably had to curtail their spending as much because they've got those fixed rates, but they're about to come off those fixed rates and start paying the much, much higher mortgage repayments, which is going to slow spending down. And we're seeing it. I talked about it on my Sky News interview this week. We're seeing it in reality when it comes to businesses closing. You go into your local shopping mall and have a look at how many spaces are empty or how many businesses are closing down because they can't afford the rents, they can't afford the interest payments, and they can't afford the rising costs to give us the stuff that they were selling. So to suggest even for 1 second that this number or elements of this number are a reason why the Reserve Bank may need to increase rates again is just laughable. And so I'm being very aggressive today because we need that message to get out and for people to understand that we are not the ones that have caused this problem, and we are being hit with massive increases in rents and mortgage repayments in order to accommodate all these interest rate rises. Like ultimately, someone has to pay for this, and it becomes, like I've said many, many times, a self-fulfilling prophecy when you increase interest rates, which causes housing costs to go up and rents to go up, which then causes inflation to go up. It's pretty much a circular argument, and one that's hard to have a rational conversation with when it comes to people making sense of these numbers. So these graphs are all fun and interesting. Falling inflation reduces rate rise pressure. Yes, it does and should. But then there's somewhere further down here, the Reserve Bank will be wary, however, that a pause in July could encourage further rebound in house prices and consumer spending. Well, have a look and listen to what people are saying about their ability to spend, and you'll have a much better understanding that with 2 more rate rises still to filter through the system, and all those people coming off those those historically low fixed interest rates, we're going to see a massive change in people's spending habits. And we're seeing it. We're seeing businesses go out of business because we're not spending. Now, sure, the data suggests that we are spending on certain things, but a lot of it is stuff that we have to spend on. We have to eat. We have to be housed. So it's fairly circular. It's fairly ridiculous, and I think it's about time that there was a pause and a realistic consideration of the fact that when you look at the data, it's this RBA target of 2 to 3%. If you look at the data for 2023, and I don't expect anybody to do that individually, but I follow some people who have done this, and therefore I know that when you look at the data for the year of 2023, the amount of inflation for the current year, month to month, is in that 2 to 3% range. And so we've hit the range. Sure, the annual data's got to catch up with that. And obviously it takes a period of time for the annual data to catch up with what's happened in the first 6 months of the year. So why not let that happen before you go and slump another interest rate rise on top of 2 that haven't already filtered through the market? Makes no sense at all, and is just, it just goes beyond belief that they would even consider it. Have a pause and let's see what happens. But the good news is at least some of the stuff that was beyond our control, fuel prices, therefore oil prices, and travel costs are starting to reduce in order to bring them back to more normal levels, and therefore helping reduce that inflation rate quite dramatically. So it is a crazy time. and ridiculous that we are contemplating more increases, but that's the reality of what's happening at the moment. But we need to get more conversations happening about the fact that we're in that 2 to 3% range already for this year. And so when that data filters through on an annual basis, we'll be back where the RBA wants us, and therefore no need for more interest rate rises. What does that all mean for your personal money management and wealth? Well, it still means that there's opportunities. So whilst there's all this other bad news, there's also opportunities when it comes to managing and growing your money. And if you want to have a conversation about how to make that happen, make sure you reach out and speak to us, because now is a great time to take advantage of what is happening in the markets. So put the personal bent aside, think about the long-term future of your wealth, and take advantage of these markets to lock in some great gains and do really, really well. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know your comments. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button and the little bell to get notified when we issue a new release. And if you're watching this on Facebook, leave us a comment down below. And if you want to have a conversation about what's happening in the markets and how we can help you manage and grow your money, then let's make that happen. Let me know one way or the other. Comment or send us an email, send us a direct message, and we will connect. We will connect, and we can have a conversation, see whether or not it's something we can do to help you out. As you can see, I've got to jump off for a coaching call. So have a great week. We'll see you again next week. That was Woody's Weekly Wisdom, episode number 20. See you again soon. Cheers.